The sun hadn't yet risen over Manhattan, but the Clover and Steam Cafe was already buzzing. It was tucked between tall towers and polished sidewalks, one of those places that always smelled like cinnamon and roasted coffee beans. Inside, Rachel moved like someone who had lived 1,000 mornings just like this. She weaved between tables with a tray of oat milk lattes in one hand and a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her apron was wrinkled, her ponytail loose, but she never dropped a cup. She had been awake since 5. Again. At tea table 3, a man in a tailored wool coat snapped his fingers. "I said no foam," he barked, his voice cut through the hum of conversation, making a young barista near him shrink into herself. Rachel heard it from across the room. She set her tray down and walked over. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her tone calm but unyielding. The man jabbed his finger toward the cup. "This isn't what I ordered. If your people can't follow basic instructions, we serve coffee, not ego," Rachel said, folding her arms. His mouth dropped. "Who do you think you are? I'm the person telling you to stop yelling at my coworker. If you want your drink fixed, ask like a decent human. Otherwise, there's the door." The room quieted. A few customers turned to look. The young barista blinked like she couldn't believe someone had stood up for her. Then a smooth voice chimed in from the side. "You just cost yourself your job." Rachel turned. A man in a navy coat stood by the counter, holding a coffee. His face was sharp, his posture perfect. He looked expensive, even in a room full of suits. "And who are you?" Rachel asked. "Tyler Crane," he said. He sipped his coffee slowly, almost amused. Rachel froze. The name echoed in her mind. Tyler Crane, Wall Street's golden boy, youngest hedge fund CEO in New York, cover of Forbes last month. She squared her shoulders. "Well, Mr. Crane," she said coolly, "I guess your morning just got a little more entertaining." He smiled, just slightly. "Or enlightening. You really going to get me fired for standing up for someone?" "No," he replied. "Most people in your shoes would have just kept their head down. You didn't." Rachel shrugged. "Then maybe this place doesn't deserve someone with a backbone." He stared at her, thoughtful. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Rachel." He checked his watch. "Rachel, how would you like to make $1,000 for one night?" She blinked. "Excuse me? I need a date," he said plainly. "Tonight, a gala. My ex will be there. I need her to believe I've moved on, spectacularly." She stared at him. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? For one night. You show up, look amazing, act like we're in love, and then walk away $1,000 richer. No strings, no weirdness." Rachel folded her arms. "Why me?" "Because you didn't flinch when I dropped my name." She let out a dry laugh. "That's because I didn't know it." He grinned. "Still, I like your fire." She glanced around. Rent was due. Her roommate had just left without paying her half. The idea was wild, but maybe that was the point. "Fine," she said at last. "But I want dinner first. A real one." Tyler nodded. "Deal." The next day, a sleek black car pulled up outside her tiny apartment. Rachel climbed in, feeling like a fraud, but also, strangely, like someone stepping into a new story. Just for one night, she told herself. She was taken to a designer showroom. In Soho, stylists swarmed her with fabric swatches and jewelry trays. Tyler arrived a few minutes later, cool and unreadable, and gestured at the racks. Rachel paused in front of a deep green dress. "Try that one," he said. She didn't answer, but took it anyway. In the mirror, Rachel barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress clung to her like it was made for her. Her hair was swept back. Diamond earrings sparkled on a tray beside her. "I'm not wearing those," she said. "They're Van Cleef. I'm not walking into a ballroom wearing something worth more than my college debt." "You're a prop," he said softly. She looked at him. "Then don't dress me like a prize." One of the assistants coughed awkwardly. Later, a woman coached her on posture and cutlery etiquette. Midway through the session, she paused. "You studied international relations?" Rachel blinked. "No, you just referenced the Doha round and UNED's climate report." Rachel smiled. "I read a lot." Across the room, Tyler raised an eyebrow. Later, as she picked a hairstyle, she mumbled something about capital yield curves. Tyler looked up. "Where did you learn that?" Rachel didn't look at him. "Google." But Tyler didn't believe her. Not really. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Rachel stood in a midnight blue gown, poised and still. Tyler walked up behind her. "You ready for this?" he asked. Rachel didn't turn. I've served coffee to tired New Yorkers for 5 years. I can handle rich people pretending to care. He almost smiled. Almost. She was a backup date, a fake, a distraction. But as the limo pulled away from the curb, Tyler began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he was the one who'd been caught off guard. The gala was held in a ballroom that shimmered like a dream, glass chandeliers above, gold trim on every wall, and music that floated like it belonged to another world. Tyler stepped out of the car first, offering his arm with practiced charm. Rachel hesitated. Then she took a breath and stepped into the light. From the moment she walked in, the room noticed it wasn't just the midnight blue gown, though it fit her like it had been stitched with stardust. It wasn't just the subtle diamonds in her hair or the way her heels clicked with calm purpose. It was her something quiet and powerful in the way she held her head. Something real. Heads turned, eyes followed. Conversations paused as Tyler Crane, the man who never brought anyone twice, walked in with a woman no one could place but everyone suddenly wanted to know. Near the champagne fountain stood Vivian Lancaster. She noticed them instantly. Vivian was perfect in a cold, curated way. Silver couture hugged her frame. Her entourage hung off her every glance. She watched Rachel with eyes that measured and sliced at the same time. Well, Vivian said smoothly, walking up to them. I didn't know you were bringing entertainment tonight, Tyler. Rachel smiled without flinching. Lovely to meet you too. Vivian's tone sharpened. And what do you do, darling, besides accessorizing millionaires? Rachel tilted her head slightly, her voice honey smooth. Mostly I study socioeconomic patterns in post-recession markets, but I dabble in accessories. A beat passed. Vivian blinked. One of her entourage actually choked on his champagne. Tyler's lips twitched, trying not to smile. Vivian forced a laugh, a little too sharp. That's ambitious, considering you probably know more about latte foam than finance. Rachel's smile widened just a fraction. Actually, I think latte art is a perfect metaphor for the market. Intricate, temporary, completely at the mercy of human mood. Sort of like hedge funds. The silence that followed was beautiful. Vivian's face froze. Someone nearby whispered, "Who is she?" Vivian opened her mouth, then closed it again. Tyler turned to Rachel. Want a drink? She nodded. Please. They moved to the edge of the ballroom, past walls lined with rare art and conversation. Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she picked up a champagne glass. You didn't tell me there would be blood in the water, she murmured. You handled her like a pro. Tyler replied, I used to think people like that could see through me. They can't, he said, because you're not pretending. Rachel glanced at him, surprised. But he was already looking at the crowd, his face unreadable again. Later, a senior partner from a major bank approached. Tyler, introduce me? Before Tyler could answer, Rachel stepped forward. Rachel, pleasure to meet you, Mr. Barron. I've followed your work on ESG strategies, though I think your third quarter projections overestimated sustainable returns given current energy volatility. The man laughed. Well, someone did her homework. Always, she said smoothly. Tyler stood silent beside her, watching her engage. She moved like someone born to this world, not borrowing it for a night, but there was still a wall behind. Her eyes like she didn't trust any of it to last. As the night stretched on, she danced once with Tyler. His hand on her back felt warmer than it should have. They moved through the crowd like two people caught in someone else's fairy tale. Near midnight, Tyler led her to the edge of the ballroom, away from the lights and whispers. You're full of surprises, he said. I told you. I'm just a barista. No, he said, quieter now. You're not. Rachel took a breath. Her eyes flicked to the crowd, then back to him. Why do you care? Tyler looked at her, his voice low. Because I brought you here for show. But you're the only real thing in this entire room. Her stomach twisted. They stood in silence for a moment too long. Then she pulled away. Don't make this more than it is. I'm not, he said. But I want to. Rachel didn't reply. Her expression didn't shift, but something flickered in her eyes. Later, when the gala began to thin out and the guests moved to late-night lounges and secret deals, Rachel quietly stepped away. Tyler caught up with her by the exit. You're leaving? It's midnight. I turned back into a barista 10 minutes ago. I could call you a car. I'll walk. He paused. Will I see you again? Rachel stopped, her hand on the door. You paid for a night, Mr. Crane. You got one. And then she was gone. Back on the sidewalk, in heels too nice for a life she didn't live. Rachel walked into the cold night air with a fire in her chest she didn't have before. She had stood in their world and hadn't just survived, she had made them stop and listen. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't a backup anything. The next morning, Tyler sat alone in his high-rise office, the city sprawling beyond the glass like a chessboard of power and ambition. But his mind wasn't on markets or mergers. It was on Rachel, the girl who walked into a ballroom as a decoy and left like she owned the place. She had spoken with elegance, sparred with billionaires, and left Vivian Lancaster speechless in her own domain. That wasn't luck. He pulled up his laptop. One search led to another, then another. Rachel Carter, she had said, but her tone that night, that strange hesitation before giving her name, it echoed in his memory. He typed slower now, searching public records, old articles, anything that might fill in the blanks. Then he found it. Not Rachel Carter, Rachel Crossman. His fingers froze above the keyboard. The name hit him like ice water. Victor Crossman, one of the most respected investment icons of his time. Until his reputation imploded a decade ago, the headlines came flooding back. Insider trading, shell companies, regulatory violations. None of it proven, all of it devastating. Victor had vanished from the industry. Some said he was framed, others said he had crossed the wrong people, but no one ever found the full truth. Tyler leaned back in his chair. Pieces clicked into place. Her knowledge, her poise, the fire in her eyes. She was his daughter. The girl serving lattes on the edge of Wall Street had been raised in its core before the walls fell in on her. He stood, phone already in hand. Later that evening, Rachel stepped into the glass-paneled lobby of Crane Capital, wearing jeans and a tired hoodie. She walked with caution, clutching her old backpack like a shield. The receptionist waved her through. She rode the elevator in silence, her heart pounding. Tyler was waiting in his office. "You wanted to see me?" she said, arms crossed. "Close the door." She did. Slowly, the room felt colder than usual. He didn't speak right away. "I ran." "Your name," he said finally. "Your real name." She didn't flinch, but her shoulders tensed. "I know who your father was." A pause. "Victor Crossman." Her lips pressed into a tight line. "So now you know," she said. "Why hide it?" Rachel looked out the window, the skyline flickering like distant stars. "Would you have brought me to that gala if you knew?" Tyler didn't answer immediately. "Probably not, exactly." She crossed the room, standing by the glass, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. "That name used to open doors," she whispered. "Then it slammed every one of them shut. After the scandal, we lost everything. Our home, his career, his friends. He never really came back from it." He gave up? No, he was broken by people he trusted. Business partners, allies. They turned on him when he wouldn't play dirty. She turned to face Tyler. "People like the Lancasters." He frowned. "You think they were behind it?" "I don't think. I know." He stepped closer, slower now. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wasn't looking for pity. I didn't want to be dragged back into a world that only saw me as my father's name." "You didn't just survive at that gala," Tyler said. "You ruled the room." Rachel let out a breath. "It doesn't matter. They'll never see me as anything but the girl from a ruined name." "I do." His voice was softer now. "And I think you're more dangerous to people like them than you realize." She looked at him sharply. "I found something," he added. He opened a drawer and placed a folder on the desk. Inside were documents, some public, others not. Investment patterns, transactions, shell company records, all pointing to Lancaster Holdings. "They profited off your father's fall," Tyler said. "They didn't just betray him, they buried him." Rachel's eyes scanned the pages. Her hands trembled. "This isn't justice," she whispered. "No," he said, "but it's a start." Silence settled like dust in the room. "I'm not trying to fix the past," she said finally, "but I won't run from it anymore." Tyler nodded slowly. "We have one shot," he said, "to expose them, but I can't do it without you." Rachel stared at the file. After 10 years of silence, of hiding, of swallowing what she knew, she had something again. A choice. She closed the folder. "Tell me what we need to do." Tyler didn't smile. "Not yet," but his voice steadied, and something unspoken passed between them, something sharper than partnership, deeper than revenge. It wasn't about pretending anymore. It was war. The next few days passed in a blur of spreadsheets, encrypted messages, and quiet tension. Tyler's apartment became their war room. The walls of glass framed a glittering skyline that now felt less like a dream and more like a battleground. Rachel sat cross-legged on the couch, eyes focused on her laptop, sifting through data like it was personal. Because it was. She zoomed in on emails, highlighted inconsistencies, cross-referenced fake subsidiaries and consulting contracts. All of it pointed back to Lancaster Holdings. Shell companies had been created. Funds moved through obscure names. Victor Crossman's downfall had been orchestrated with precision. They didn't just destroy his firm, she said, her voice steady but tight. They made sure he couldn't fight back. They left nothing behind. Tyler stood across from her, leaning against the kitchen island, arms folded. Then we leave them with no place to hide. He opened a folder and laid it on the table. There's a shareholders gala coming up. Lancaster Holdings is planning to unveil a massive merger deal that'll make headlines. Rachel raised an eyebrow. A merger? It's a cover, another asset strip. But this time, if we hit them while their investors are watching, we don't just ruin their plan, we expose the truth. She leaned in. How? You get in as a journalist. Financial Pulse old blog, defunct. We revived it just long enough to give you credentials. They won't dig deep. They don't think people like you are dangerous. Rachel's lips twitched into a wry smile. They never do. Tyler pointed at a name on the printed page. Grant Niles, CFO. He's the one presenting the merger strategy. He'll have sensitive data on his phone, meeting notes, access logs, private communications. You want me to get to his phone? 3 minutes. That's all we'll have. When he's distracted, you activate the data siphon from this. He handed her a slim flash drive modified with a discrete transmitter. Plug it into his phone, and we'll have everything. Rachel stared at it. If they catch me, they won't, Tyler said. Then softer, because you'll be better than all of them. She looked at him, uncertain. You trust me that much? He met her gaze without flinching. You've already done more in one night than most people do in a lifetime. Rachel's throat tightened, but she said nothing. She just nodded and tucked the drive into her purse. They rehearsed every step. Her entry, her alias, her target, what to say, when to leave. Tyler paced like a general preparing for battle, and Rachel followed every instruction with careful attention. But beneath the strategy was something else building. Every shared glance, every long silence, every time they reached for the same document, and their hands touched for a second too long. Tyler never said anything about it. Neither did she. It was just there. The night before the gala, Rachel stood on the balcony, the city breathing beneath her. Tyler stepped out behind her, holding two mugs of coffee. He offered her one. Ironic, she said with a soft smile. Me drinking coffee and not making it, he chuckled. How are you holding up? Honestly, scared. She took a sip, but also ready. He looked at her for a long time. You know, when I met you, I thought you were just a barista with a backbone. I was. No, he said gently. You were always more. I just didn't see it yet. The air between them shifted. Rachel looked away, her voice quiet. After the gala, this ends, right? Tyler blinked. What do you mean? You get your revenge. I get justice. Then we go back to pretending none of this happened. He didn't answer. She turned to him. It's okay. I get it. He reached out, almost without thinking, and touched her hand. I don't want to go back to pretending. Rachel didn't move. Her breath caught, but then she pulled her hand away gently. Tomorrow, she whispered. Let's survive tomorrow first. Tyler nodded. In the quiet that followed, the city stretched around them like a promise waiting to be kept or broken. The next day, Rachel dressed in a sleek blazer and subtle heels. Her badge read Claire Weston Financial Pulse. She rehearsed her alias in her head, again and again. Her hair was pulled back tight, her expression calm, but inside, her heart was pounding like a war drum. She walked into Lancaster Tower without flinching. The pre-gala meeting room was all glass and steel, and smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Men and women with too much money and not enough soul sipped drinks while making soft jokes about market crashes. At the far end of the room stood Grant Niles, sipping whiskey, scrolling through his phone. Rachel moved with the crowd, joining small conversations, flashing polite smiles. She edged closer and closer to Grant, positioning herself behind him just as he set his phone down on a side table to refill his drink. She moved fast, sleight of hand. Flash drive in. The data transfer began. To minutes, she whispered. Then Miss Weston, is it? A voice asked from behind her. She turned slowly. A vice president she didn't recognize was eyeing her with polite suspicion. Which publication are you with again? Financial Pulse, she said smoothly. He frowned. Didn't that site shut down years ago? Her stomach flipped. Grant turned. Time slowed. Then, darling, Tyler burst into the room, red-faced, rumpled, staggering toward her with a wide grin. There you are. You left me with the pianist in the elevator. He thought I wanted to hear Chopin. Laughter rippled. Confusion followed. Tyler wrapped his arm around Rachel's shoulders like a drunk man in love. My fiancée, he announced. Can't take her anywhere without her charming finance nerds. Grant blinked, then laughed awkwardly. Rachel leaned into the role. Just networking, sweetheart. Tyler kissed her cheek clumsily. Right. Time to go before you start explaining derivatives again. They staggered out together. Rachel slipped the phone back onto the table just before they exited. Only when the elevator doors closed did Tyler drop the act. Did you get it? Rachel opened her clutch and pulled out the flash drive. Every email, every transaction, all of it. He exhaled. You were perfect. She looked up at him. No, she said. I was ready. Back in the car, the city moved past them in a blur of neon reflections and wet streets. Rachel sat in the back seat beside Tyler, laptop open, files downloading from the flash drive. On the screen, lines of data unfolded like scars, proof of everything her father had suspected, and more. There, she said, pointing. Payments to shell companies weeks before the merger fell through. Fake consulting fees. Internal memos. Look at the signatures. It's all there. Tyler leaned closer, his shoulder brushing against hers. Vivian's father signed off on everything. Rachel nodded. They used Lancaster Holdings to gut my dad's firm from the inside out. He was never the target. He was the cover story. Tyler didn't speak right away. He just stared at the screen, at the truth laid bare. After a decade of silence, then he looked at her. Really looked. You did it. We did it, she corrected quietly. But something was off. He could feel it in the way her voice had softened, in the way she kept looking out the window between sentences. You're not okay, he said gently. She closed the laptop. I don't know when I'm pretending anymore. Tyler frowned. I mean, she went on, I walked into that gala pretending to be your date. Then I became someone else, a strategist, a spy, a liar. Somewhere in between, I stopped pretending. Or maybe I just got too good at it. You weren't pretending when you faced Vivian. I was, she said. I pretended I wasn't afraid. I pretended I belonged. I pretended that the girl who lost everything didn't still exist. The silence that followed was thick. Then Tyler leaned forward and gave the driver an address. Take us uptown. Detour. Rachel glanced at him. Where are we going? You'll see. 20 minutes later, the car pulled up outside an old gate, a cemetery, tucked between brownstones and iron fences. The street was quiet. Snow had just begun to fall, soft flakes catching in the orange glow of the street lamps. Come on, Tyler said, opening the door. Rachel followed, her steps hesitant. They walked side by side along narrow paths, passing headstones both ancient and new. The cold seeped through her coat. She wrapped her arms tighter. Then Tyler stopped. Rachel's breath caught before she saw it. A small, clean gravestone at the base of a quiet tree. Victor Crossman, loving father. Brilliant mind. She didn't speak. She dropped to her knees and brushed snow from the marble with shaking fingers. It was immaculate, but untouched, like no one had visited in years. I found the record, Tyler said. I thought you might want to see him. Rachel swallowed hard. I didn't even know where they buried him. He reached into his coat and pulled out a white rose. He knelt beside her and laid it at the base of the stone. Then quietly, he raised someone this world didn't deserve. Rachel's eyes burned. Her throat closed. But she didn't cry. She just stared at the name. You didn't have to bring me here. I wanted to, Tyler said. You keep talking about survival, about how the world forgot him, but I didn't. Not anymore. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. Why? Because you matter. Because the truth matters. Because this, he motioned to the grave, the snow, the silence was never about a merger. It was about making people remember who he was, and who you are. They stood together, not saying much, just breathing, just remembering. And then Rachel turned slightly, her body leaning closer before her mind caught up. Tyler reached out, brushing a lock of hair from her face. His fingers lingered. Their eyes met, inches apart, and then she stepped back. I can't, she whispered. He froze. Rachel, I've already lost everything once, she said, not looking at him. If I let this be real and lose it too. Tyler didn't finish the thought for her. He just nodded. The faintest flicker of hurt crossed his eyes, but he didn't push. They walked back in silence, side by side, close, but no longer touching. Nothing had broken, but everything had shifted, and in the cold quiet between headstones, something fragile had been uncovered, raw and real, and waiting for one of them to be brave enough to reach for it again. Part 6. A voice that shook the room. Lancaster Holdings' annual gala was more than just an event, it was a performance. Held in a grand ballroom carved from glass and gold, it was where reputations were traded like stocks and truths were masked behind billion-dollar smiles. Rachel stood near the back, dressed in a simple black gown. Her hair was smooth, her shoulders bare, but her eyes burned with something deeper than elegance. She hadn't come to blend in, she had come to finish what they started. Tyler gave her a nod across the room. No words, just trust. Then the MC took the stage. His voice echoed under the chandeliered ceiling. Tonight we have a special guest speaker, someone who represents the future of ethical finance. Please welcome Rachel Crossman. The room went still. Rachel didn't move for a moment. Then she walked forward. The crowd turned. A few gasped. Vivian Lancaster straightened sharply in her seat, her face tightening. Rachel reached the podium. Her voice, when it came, was calm but steady. Good evening, she began. Some of you know me, most don't. My name is Rachel Crossman. The room exploded with whispers. 10 years ago, my father Victor Crossman was destroyed, not by failure, not by mistake, but by design. A few people stood. Some began to leave. She didn't stop. The people who profited from that destruction are here tonight. They buried him with lies. They built empires from his ashes. She opened her clutch and pulled out a small tablet. With a swipe, she connected it to the projector behind her. On the screen, emails, wire transfers, signatures, dates, names, all of this, Rachel said, was part of a coordinated effort to strip and dismantle Crossman Capital. These documents show who signed off, who moved the money, who benefited. She turned to Vivian Lancaster. You might want to sit down. The SEC already has copies. Vivian stood slowly. Her father was already whispering furiously to their legal team. This isn't revenge, Rachel said. This is truth. The lions tonight. She stepped back from the podium. The ballroom erupted. Journalists surged. Investors panicked. Lawyers ran. And somewhere behind the chaos, Tyler smiled. Not a performance. Not a game. Pride. And something much closer to love. Part 7. The Girl Who Changed the Game. In the days that followed, Rachel's name lit up headlines. Whistleblower destroys billion-dollar empire. Victor Crossman's daughter rewrites legacy. The coffee shop strategist who brought down a giant. She received offers from every major firm on the East Coast. Interviews, contracts, praise. She declined them all. Instead, she took time. Time to breathe. Time to grieve. Time to decide who she wanted to be when she wasn't fighting. One afternoon, Tyler invited her to the Crane Capital offices, not for business, but to show her something. A corner office with glass walls and skyline views. No name on the door. Yours, he said. If you want it. She blinked. Why? Because no one sees what I see. A woman who doesn't flinch. A strategist. A leader. Rachel studied him. And because, he added quietly, you changed my world. She nodded slowly. Then I want the better view. He laughed. Deal. That evening, he took her to the rooftop garden above the building. The city sparkled below them. He handed her a small box. I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet. Inside was a silver ring with one word engraved on the inside. Real. No pretending, he said. I don't want a backup date. I want the woman who turned a ballroom upside down. She slid the ring onto her finger. The stars reflected in her eyes. I'm not going anywhere, she said. But I still won't wear Van Cleef earrings to coffee. He smiled, pulling her close. I'll adjust. 3 months later, they walked into another gala together. Same lights, same whispers. But this time, when they looked at her, they didn't see a barista. They saw the woman who had brought a lie to its knees and walked out stronger. Not because of the dress, not because of the man beside her, but because she was finally, fully, herself. real, and unforgettable.